Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to the second lecture in the Christmas lecture series this year. And I've been promised festive slides, so there's going to be some festive slides in this one. My name is Esther. My pronouns are she and her, and I am a professor of game studies at Staffordshire University, and I am hosting most of the talks today. So it's my absolute delight to welcome both Tom and Davin and Tom, who are going to talk today about getting the most out of a Games Expo. If you've got, do use the chat, do say where you've come in from, do say hello to them. What we'll do is they'll talk for about 30 minutes and then we'll take about 10 minutes of questions. And I'll ask everybody, all one of you at the moment, oh, there we go. You see that it worked last time as well when people started to join. As soon as I was like, oh. But if you type any questions you have in the chat, I'll ask them at the end. And StreamYard is really awesome. It allows you to highlight what the question is as well, so you'll be able to see it. I'm sorry we don't have a transcript working. StreamYard doesn't seem to provide them, but they do very weird things with the local accent, so probably just as well. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to turn myself off the screen and I'm going to hand over to Davin and Tom. So take it away, you two.
Thank you, Esther. Hello, I'm Davin. I'm the course lead here for computer games programming here at Staffs University, and I'm with...
Hi, I'm Tom. I'm the course lead for games design and programming, which is automatically better than Davin's course because it has design in it as well.
so here you go. You might see a little bit of banter between the two of us.
It's going to happen.
Yes, this doesn't work unless we can have this banter, because the reason why we're delivering this talk is because before we worked at the university, we ran our games company called Level Boss Games, which if anybody that has run a business with somebody, you know that you get to know them as good as brothers, basically, and all that comes with it, through the stress and the laughter as well.
And over time, we seem to have swapped hair as well.
Yeah, so these are some old photos of us. You can see I used to have I decided I'm just going to brush that back now, but yes. So anyway, as Level Boss, we are developing, it's in quotes there because we are slowly working on it still, but yes, we are developing a game called Stuntfall, which is a 16-player top-down party game. And it's, as you can see kind of in the trailer that's running below, it has a mixture of different game modes. So you can see here that we had football, essentially, where you're kind of like skydiving through the air, 4 teams, different crazy balls that have different effects, and we had a King of the Hill mode as well, which involved kind of our combat system, our crazy little combat system that goes with it. The controls were super simple. You can move with the analog stick and press A or X to boost, and then you could rotate with the other analog stick. And this led to people being able to just play the game, pick up and play it, which worked really well at the Expos, which you'll start to see. So we showcase our game across the UK over 10 times at different expos, such as Insomnia Games Festival, EGX Rares, the Rooster Teeth Expo, and also Kidtropolis. And some of those were successes, some of them not so much, and we took a lot from them. And this is something that we want to kind of talk about today, really, through going through our experiences, also the experience of talking with other developers. So when we were actually showcasing, we worked a lot with Payload Studios. You'll see a lot of tentacles in the background of any of our shots because they run the Tentacle Zone, which is kind of it's a platform that the Payload provide to allow indie devs to join onto these expos and become kind of a community and ultimately kind of work together to promote indie development. So the Payload Studios gang was really awesome to us. But yeah, so moving on, these are the sort of things that we want to talk about today. So it's first, we can break it down basically. So we've got the public. What do we do to get the public involved? How can we incorporate other developers, things like publishers and the press? And then also, most importantly, how to look after yourself when you are at an expo, because they are very long, grueling days, and they take a lot of preparation and a lot of aftercare as well. So yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to pass on to Tom to briefly talk about a couple of the events that we went to.
Yeah, so starting off with the big one, one that most people are going to know about is the Insomnia Gaming Festival. So I think they're currently up to Insomnia 70 is happening at the
Yeah.
beginning of next year. Phew, this was 10 ago. That makes me feel really old. So Insomnia UK Gaming Festival, it lasts usually for a few days. It's maybe a 3 or 4 day event, and they host a couple of days beforehand for setup. So as soon as you start looking at this event, it's instantly between 5 and 6 days that you're gonna have to put aside to take part in this. Um, it's a really big festival. They host the LAN party, like the LAN party, with an usually entire hall of an expo center, which these days is the NEC. It has been XL Center in the past, and it's moved around all over the place. Um, and the typical sort of crowd that you're going to see there is a mixture of families that are bringing their young kids, with parents that don't know anything about games and are sort of confused and bewildered, and you can see them a mile off, and other influencers. I've called them influencers here. I know a lot of them don't like that name, but people that are famous on YouTube and Twitch and that sort of thing, doing meetups, signings, that sort of stuff. Yeah, so to take part in this event, you can either go for the indie zone, which these days I think is actually run by Payload Studios. Correct me if I'm wrong, Davin. I think that's the case these days.
I'm not sure on that one.
Oh, okay. Well, it has been at some point in the past, but that's free entry and that's done via a ballot. So you essentially put your game forwards and you say, "This is my game. This is why it should be in the indie zone," and then you get given a space to show it off, some walls that you can stick posters to, and a PC. I think they provide PCs, but they're not the best in the world. It depends on who's providing the sponsorships that year. You can go onto collab booths like we have via the Tentacle Zone, and that you can see the picture on the right hand side. There is a few of us from that zone, sort of taking advantage of our early access to go around and do stupid things with all the photo opportunities. But you can do that. That's for us. It was a smaller fee than paying for the floor space ourselves, and we got to take part with a load of other developers in the same sort of situations. We got that sort of stamp of approval from Payload Studios, which is what the Tentacle Zone is all about. And they also gave us an opportunity to get our nice artwork that you'll see plastered around this presentation, printed up on these massive vinyl. I think they're about a meter wide by 2 meters tall posters that we could take home afterwards. That was really good of them. But yeah, there's that. Or you can pay for space yourself. But to give an example of how much this might cost, I remember to get a 5 megabit per second internet connection to a single meter of floor space was £5,000. So, oh, it's really expensive. And generally, that's the bigger companies will do that if they've got sort of a booth space and they're selling things as well, or they're showing off a really big game. That's what they'll go for. So yeah, that's Insomnia. And the other big one is EGX. So that's the Eurogamer Expo. This one bought by Game at one point?
No,
I thought
that was
the Game Managers Conference
that
once.
was the Insomnia.
Oh, that was Insomnia. Okay,
Yeah.
I get the two mixed up because they happen so close to each other, and if you're taking part in them, as we're going to explain, they kind of blur into one. But essentially, it's another really big one. A lot of the same big games are going to be there. It again lasts a few days, but the sort of the target market and the cohort of people that attend these talks is very different. So, well, not just these talks, but these events. So EGX is usually publishers and press. So they'll have, I know they've had publisher speed dating that we'll talk a bit about later, and they'll have press events going around. They'll have more stages for doing things like esports and cosplay competitions and stuff like that at these events. And it also contains Rezzed, which is a subsection of EGX, which sometimes gets its own event, sometimes is contained within EGX, but it's known as a sort of a seal of approval with quality on an indie game to get into the res section. And again, my memory fails me. Davin, was the left field collection at EGX or was it Insomnia?
EGX.
That was EGX. Okay, yeah. So there's also the left field collection, which I haven't mentioned on these slides, but I've just remembered about it. Curated by a curator, whoever's running it these days. They'll basically take in a load of really strange games, and the aim is to take in and exhibit games that are odd and quirky in some way. So an example of what I've seen, you had to play the game by feeding books into a shredder that was dressed up like a Yeti. And that's how you played the game. It was very strange, but that's the sort of thing that makes it into left field. So it's a space for the more adventurous and interesting mechanics to sort of see if they work with the public, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
And then to take part, it's the same fare. So there's an indie zone, there's the collab booths, and there's also the paid space for that one.
Cool. Yeah, I think like what's really important there is that you have the two different target audiences for both of these events. EGX tends to have the big, more AAA games that, there, and the Insomnia is more family streamer sort of focused, with the LAN party being there as well. So it's very important to calculate that into your marketing strategies. Okay, cool.
Oh, I don't think I included a slide note. I didn't. If you jump back up, the other ones that we mentioned before. So the which ones did we mention?
The RTX and Kidropolis.
RTX and Kidropolis. Those two, I'm not sure if they are still running in the UK, but RTX, when we went for it, was very much it was a streamer focus. So RTX is the Rooster Teeth Expo, and Rooster Teeth are a media organization. They do loads of stuff, but it was very much focused around them, and we were sort of there as filler, and we didn't really know what the case was going to be before we went to it, and we found out once we were there, like, oh, nobody is here to see us. They're all here to see the people from Rooster Teeth. That's fine. It didn't cost us a whole lot to go to that one because it was a sort of testing the waters and seeing if it would work. And the same with Kidropolis. The key with those, really, we kind of missed the mark on what the target audience was and what our game was. It may have worked, it might not have done, and because it didn't cost much, it was worth us trying it. But before you invest in the amount of time into these events, you really do need to know what you're going into. Why is it going to be worth it for you? Because just going to all of them isn't a viable strategy. You'll see the pound strip out the bank account, and not really see the return for it.
Awesome, cool. So so now we spoke about the different types of events. We're going to start to look at how we can make the most out of these events once we're actually there. So first up, we're going to look at the public, essentially, and the key things here is how are you going to advertise your game to the people that are just walking around, essentially. One key thing that I always like to think of is if you've gone to these events as a consumer, what is it that makes you want to actually play a certain game? Now it might be that you know that game and it's a big game that you're really excited to come out, so you want to wait in line and you want to play it. But if you're in the indie section, that probably isn't the case. So it comes down to a couple of different things, and one of those does really tend to be the artwork. Now, with ours, we had so the game was about stuntmen essentially falling through the sky, but we had nice clear font, basically what our game's going to be. We had a logo, nice blue bold color to attract people's eyes, and it made people sort of just look at what's going on. With us also being part of the Tentacle Zone, we were next to a bunch of other different games as well, which also really helped sort of bring in the crowd and filter them through the actual the booth. Now we've been in good places and bad places on the booth, and that does help. So if you're kind of in a corner where the footfall isn't going to go through, you're probably going to get less people playing your game. But if you're facing outwards into the actual hall, into the pathways, you're going to get a lot of people like looking at your game and just getting interest in it. So that helps massively. And at the start, when people start coming again, they are going to go to the more bigger games first, and they're going to slowly come to you, because as an indie, people don't tend to be there for you. They are there for the AAA games. So you've got to figure out how you can entice them. And one of those as well is kind of having a demo mode of the game sort of playing. So this isn't something that we had when we first started to showcase the game. We just had our splash screen, our main menu, which was like press start to play. And then people would come in and they'd have to ask us questions about it. They didn't really understand what the game was, so we had to give them an elevator pitch, and we had to try and persuade them to play it. And we changed this to having basically a screensaver of the game playing. So we just loaded in a match with a bunch of AI, and it would just play the game until somebody picked up a controller and pressed any button, and then it would just get them into a game. And by doing that, it allowed people to go like, oh, this game looks cool, and they could instantly understand what the game is and kind of what they're going to be getting themselves into. You can also, if you're very charismatic, you can shout people in, get them to come and play your game. If they're playing games in the booth next to you, so if they're playing a similar game or something like that, you can start to get involved in those conversations and trying to bring them over to play your booth, because ultimately you're being a salesperson there, trying to represent your game and get them to really want to play. It's very important to be friendly open posture. Make sure you're very welcoming. Don't stand there with your arms crossed and just looking sad because you're tired and you're exhausted and you just want to go home because it's the end of the fourth day and you're not feeling too well. You need to make sure that you've got that smile on your face. And you're very welcoming. People want to come play the game because one of the things that they'll remember from playing your game is also the developers. And one of like nice memories I've had is when somebody's brought their friend to the Tentacle Zone, and I've gone like, oh, I played this game at a previous expo. These people were really nice. I liked this game, and then they started to sell our game for us, which was absolutely awesome. And that's kind of what you want to see, really. So make a very good impression to the people that play your game. And then also that comes with that really is make sure you have good hygiene because, as we said, long day. Make sure you shower every night. But yeah, just make sure you look presentable going to these. Okay, moving on. So yeah, I'll pass it over to Scott.
Yeah, the what is it? Deodorant isn't a substitute for a shower.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I mean, I've gone when you at the beginning of these events when it's first opening, like we'll mention later, but like when you're going around and playing other people's games, you actually do notice. You're like, oh, okay, all right. Look after yourself as well. But yeah, so retention. Once somebody's looked at your game, they've seen the amazing artwork, you've called out to them, you've got them interested. Maybe their friends played it before and they want to beat them at your game. That's a great one to do. Like competition between friends just breeds success for your game. And yeah, once they're on the hook, you've got to give them a simple and fast pitch before letting them jump in. So, I mean, you might not need to. Hopefully, if you've got a game which you don't need to say anything, people can just sit down and understand it. You're onto a winner there. But a lot of games, most of them will require some kind of pitch. Like, at least these are the basic controls. So you got to explain your game in like one sentence. Two is probably a bit long. And don't get too technical. So they don't necessarily care that you spent 4 weeks getting RTX reflections working nicely in your game. They're not going to see it, really. They're probably not a developer. Even if they are, do they care? Probably not. They're probably thinking about when they're going to have food next. I know I was. Yeah, but then you've got your elevator pitch as well on top of that. So as long as it's clean, fast, simple, and gives the information across as quickly as you can, it's good. So the ones for ours, I've had to sort of dig this out of memory depths because of COVID, meaning we didn't do any events. I've kind of forgotten what we did, but it was something along the lines of, come sit down, this is Stuntful, you're a stuntman, skydiving, playing football. Left analog stick moves, right analog stick boosts you, faster you press it, faster you go. Done. That's quick. It's literally 2 controls. I don't tell them about the other controls because if they get into it, I can then start introducing those things. They just need the basics to start playing and having fun. And keeping it simple was the key. So yeah. Yeah, there's some examples here actually. I was going to say the bottom left picture there, that group of friends playing. One of them is a YouTuber, and when we come onto the section later about how to treat the public when they're coming around, you don't know who the important people are. One of them has over 400,000 subscribers. You tell me who it is, because you probably wouldn't know. They're very unassuming people. These famous internet personalities. Yeah, and then you've got examples of like Gang Beasts on the right-hand side. That game, they've set that up so that it's stupid simple to make it work at an event. You just throw controllers at people, they press buttons, and they work out what happens. And they end up screaming and shouting about the game, which brings more people in, creates a crowd. It's a really good sort of self-perpetual, like self-fulfilling prophecy of goodness. Virtuous circle, that's what people call it, right? That's the business slang, right? Let's go on to the next slide then. So yeah, then once they are actually playing, during play, you've got 2 ways that you can play this. You can either be the dev which stands there and is part of the experience with them. So you play with them, you're like their guide, you're their game master from Dungeons and Dragons. And that's really good. Like if the game maybe requires a bit more of technical play or some more like puzzle solving, you want them to have a good experience, you don't want them to be stuck. So being a part of it with them can help. Although you might want to do the opposite. There's the other way of dealing with this is hanging way back. Let them have their experience with it. They can get stuck on things. They can try and figure them out themselves. And it's a good point then, if you're hanging back, you can then take notes of these things. I think the worst thing you can do is take both of those ideas and go somewhere in between. Because sitting in between, you're sort of hovering, like they know you're there, you're kind of close, it's kind of awkward. It's like, oh, is this guy okay? Like he's just looking over my shoulder the whole time, and then you do that really awkward like slide in when they do something wrong. It's like, oh, wouldn't you want to press this button? And it's like, thank you, Clippy. For those of you that remember Clippy from Word. So that's kind of the worst of the two worlds. You got to pick a style and stick to it, really, or maybe change it up as you feel throughout the event. But the majority of the time, you either want to hang back, let them have their experience, note down where stuff goes wrong, and that's the stuff you need to fix in the game for the build to the outside world, or be a part of it with them because it's early days. Realistically, once the game's out there, once it's for sale on Steam, on Xbox Marketplace, like Nintendo Switch, if you're lucky, that kind of thing, then you're not going to be sitting there playing with everybody. So your game needs to be able to take care of itself. And then once they start having fun, like these people on the top right in this GIF, when they start having fun, take your phone out, record them. A lot of these events have a policy. Make sure you read it beforehand, but they have a policy on ticket buying that you sign away the rights to your own face when you buy a ticket. If like if you pay attention to that sort of thing, I mean, obviously it's nice to tell them as well, like, is it okay if I use this video for promotional purposes? People would appreciate being asked, and if they say no, like, they don't, like, you don't have to go along with it, but it's best practice to just not use those images and pictures. But most people are fine with it. But yeah, getting that footage, it's really good. Then sharing that out on social media, using it for talks about how to do things at expos and events, great for filling slides, for that sort of thing. But it's good. People like seeing other people having fun. It's the reason that YouTubers put lots of faces in their thumbnails of their videos, because it draws you in. If you see a face that's like obviously excited or like shocked about something, you're drawing it like, oh, what is that person doing? Why are they like having that reaction? You've also got the like other games. A great example of this, Block Ships down the bottom. This game is the perfect event game. The guy that runs it, Dave, he's great. Like, he's such a showman. He's brilliant. He has a little Marshall amplifier on his belt and a Britney mic. And the whole time he is like the announcer in your game, sort of thing. Like, he's the narrator. He's there. He's guiding the situation. You're doing the game. You're playing the game, and you're having fun. The crowd's built up around you because he's so loud. And right at the beginning of every game, he gets everybody to shout 3, 2, 1, Block Ships. And that's brilliant. That's perfect marketing, because you have a crowd of people that are invested in who's going to win in this game, like getting a lot of attention, a lot of eyes on it, and then they're yelling the name of your game at the rest of the hall that doesn't know what's going on, and they'll get drawn into the crowd just from that. It's the perfect game for events. Yeah, I think that's all I've got to say on that one.
Cool. So yeah, so once once they finish playing their game, this is your time to be able to grab some feedback from them and speak to them, show them who you are, and be really nice and make a lasting impression. So one of the reasons you go to these events is, one, obviously marketing. You want people to know your game exists, but secondly, it's great for getting feedback, bug fixes, finding out what's wrong with it. You as a developer, you know your game inside and out. You know the controls. You think everything works perfectly. Getting thousands of people to play your game is very intense, and you will find bugs, you will find errors, you'll find things that design-wise don't quite make sense because they can't figure out how to do something. And yes, you can get that from just watching them play. That's absolutely great. But you can also get it from them afterwards as well, and kind of feel ideas and understand what their thought process was while they were playing the game. Especially as a group of people as well, because you'll find that they'll have like banter with each other, and they'll open that up a bit more. You can get more of a dialogue sort of going. But then also you need to kind of make sure you stay in their memory, right? So giving them something is really nice. So we did 2 different things. Well, we did 3 actually. We did the cards, as you can see in the photos. We did the stickers. Tom just held one up there, and there's an image of them on the ground there. And we also looked at doing t-shirts as well, which we didn't get round to actually doing too much, and I'll go on to that in a moment. But yeah, so cards and the stickers are the most important ones here. Cards were fine, like, here, have a business card. They're going to get these all the time. Nobody can do anything with a business card. Yes, it could have your social handles on there or something like that. But as you can see on our booth, like, our social handles are like everywhere, essentially. They can see those. And a card just becomes pocket filler, essentially, and they're going to get loads of these, and ultimately they'll probably end up just going into the bin or just thrown on the floor somewhere. With a sticker, on the other hand, people don't know that they want a sticker, but people want stickers. They'll stick them anywhere, which is also really nice free marketing. But with our sticker, for instance, like, it had our logo on it, but it was also just a picture of a man, right? You could see somebody just sort of falling, which was a nifty design in my opinion. So it was quite nice. People could have that. They'd be happy that they had a sticker. It feels like they've taken away some form of swag, whereas with a card, they feel like they've been given a business card and they're sort of just like, okay. Whereas, giving them something feels great. And the good thing about these two options, though, is that they're cheap relatively. Obviously, it still costs money to get these printed, but they're nice and cheap. We did go down the route of having some t-shirts printed, and we were going to do them sort of like a competition. But it's hard to keep track of the people that play your game, getting them to come back to collect the t-shirts and all that sort of stuff. Now you can do leaderboards, and if your game kind of allows it to go like, okay, if you're at the top of the leaderboard by the end of the day, come back to us. I've got a big prize for you, and that can be a t-shirt because people love t-shirts. People love free clothes. It's a thing. So yeah, just think about how you can give them something to take away and for them to remember you. Say goodbye to them, nice and friendly. Make sure you're thankful that they played your game, but don't be too over the top, obviously. But because in our case, where we were part of the Tentacle collection, we were next to a bunch of other games, and the developers of those were also really friendly. We'll get onto those in a moment. But suggest the people that played your games to go and check out games of your neighbors, of people on the booth, games that that you think they will like based off of how they felt about your game. Because if there's similar games on the booth, then work with each other, because they'll also send people over to you if you send people over to them, and you can start to build up this relationship, because you're going to be with these other developers for the 4 days, and hopefully you'll stay in contact and networking. But yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment. But just make sure that the people after they played your game are really happy. Okay. So on to kind of these professionals then. So first up, we're going to start looking at the other developers, and as I just mentioned, you're going to be with them for a long time, and you're going to be in very close proximity to them as well. So you saw in some of the earlier photos that we had the two PCs right next to each other. Sometimes we had a double booth so we could have multiple people playing the game at the same time. Sometimes you're on a corner, so it's not too bad. But really, you're going to be slap bang in the middle of a bunch of other games, and you're going to have to get used to speaking to these other people that go through the same journey as you very quickly. Because you're there together, and it's nice. You make friends, you network. You don't know what those people can help you with in the future. Maybe as an indie developer, maybe contract work could come your way, or maybe they can help you with marketing, or maybe they can just give you support on something if you're stuck. Maybe you meet somebody with a particular skill set and they're happy to help with a certain thing, or they can give you feedback from a more critical developer point of view from outside the team. Great. So get used to speaking with those. And if you're going to if you're joining these collaboration events sort of thing, like the Tentacle Zone, for instance, or if you are just jumping onto the free events, you might find that you're with the same sort of people all the time. So, for instance, the Gang Beasts team were with us quite regular. Coat Sync were with us quite regular, and we got to meet the developers and the PR people for those teams, and it was really good to get to know them, get feedback, and all that sort of stuff. And they helped us again in the future, which was absolutely awesome. So yeah, so just make sure that you get to understand other people's games, play other people's games, because you'll learn stuff from that as well. And also, it's nice to do that. Show that you appreciate other people's work. You're not just there for yourself. At the end of the day, you're there to network, and you're there to play other people's stuff, because that will help you as a developer as well. And if you're really nice with them, they'll do the most important thing and watch over your booth while you go and grab some fresh air or grab a coffee. Because as we said, very long days. If you're there by yourself, thankfully, Tom and I did most of the events together, but there was some times where we did do them solo. But if you can get a developer to help look after your booth for you whilst you step away for take a break, because you will need to do that, that's great. So make sure you're doing that.
Okay. Okie doke, folks. You have about 30 seconds left to conclude, and then
Oh,
All right.
Wow.
Cool. Questions. I've been
I
queuing you up in the
fly
private chat.
through these as
Thank you.
fast as I can. Press. You can book press. Do it. Be nice to them. Smile. Give everybody the time of day, and have a
Yeah.
press kit ready to make their life easy. Cool. Next slide.
Awesome.
Yeah,
sorry.
Publishers. What are we saying with this? Yeah. Do your homework. Find out who's actually there. Look if there's publisher speed dating. It's really cool. Quite difficult, and you need somebody else to go with you because you can't be on the booth when that's happening. Don't talk about your game unless you're asked to at these after parties. Go to them. Drink with these people. Have a tea with them as Davin did, and they'll be friendly, and then make friends. And then if they ask you, you can talk about your game. Great.
Yeah.
And finally, looking after yourself.
Yeah.
Do it. Just look after yourself, and we'll leave
Yeah.
that up on the screen while people are asking questions, and that'll work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's funny actually because God, I can't believe I came to a work university talk to be told about distro boxes. Oh my God, that's my off night. Talking about what the power output is. But it's a good point, make sure you know where the power points are, make sure you actually know how much energy you're pushing into things, and make sure you know if you're using anything to do with the Wi-Fi, it's not going to fall over, because oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
Event center Wi-Fi is bad, and the NEC has some blind spots, particularly in the Hilton, if you're in the Hilton. Okay, yeah, if you've got any questions, please put them in the comments. Otherwise, I think we can just talk generally for the next 10 minutes or so. We've got an adage in con running which is called the 5-2-1 rule. Have you guys heard of that?
I haven't. No.
Okay, 5 hours of sleep, 2 meals, 1 shower. It kind of goes back into this thing. Yes, after 5, you will be doing quite long networking events at night, and I think it's a really good point. Don't be talking about your game, be talking to people. And making friends and talking about, if you don't know what to say to people, say, how's your event going? What are you demonstrating, or what have you been playing recently? They're all easy conversation openers that you can talk about, on indefinitely.
Exactly. People have been speaking about the game all day. Like the last thing that they want to do at that point is speak about their game more.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Yeah. And people do want to play, but they don't necessarily want to play what's on the floor. So if you've got like a card game or something, that's also a good one. It's like, anyone want to play, not necessarily Werewolf, but I quite often take Funky Chicken with me, which is a completely stupid game, and Sushi Go, that kind of thing. But yeah, if you were going to sort of name in order the ones that you ought to go to, because you kind of fired through a bunch there, in terms of kind of Insomnia, Res, a whole bunch that were together, which are the ones that you'd recommend as if say I'm a starter, it's the first event I've ever done, which one do you think should be at the top?
I'd say it really depends on the game.
Yeah.
Because if it's a group game that's good with families, like the best memories I've got are from like Insomnia, where a parent who doesn't play games and a kid who's an avid gamer play together, and they have this rivalry brewing. But because our game is so different from everybody else's games, it's not a standard control scheme. They're on a level playing field, and when the parent wins, there's this sort of like "haha, gotcha" kind of thing, and that's great. There's some great experiences. Those people hold on to that.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I would look at going either like Insomnia or EGX if you can. Just be prepared that they are big events. But yeah, as Tom said there, it depends on kind of your target audience of what your game actually is. If it's a bit more hardcore, maybe go more towards EGX. If it's a bit more party, family friendly, Insomnia is probably your better option there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the other things that I was kind of thinking about, which I think people often forget when they're, because you were sort of saying, make sure you budget, pick what area you're going to be in. It's also make sure that you've sorted out your accommodation and your eating, because that can be really expensive. Again, the NEC is a big block of hotels, and those hotels, they do well, and all the food is on site, and that food is not cheap. So sort of thinking about how you're going to do that as well.
The subway at the NEC is extremely expensive.
It is. Yep.
They get
As
a lot of
Starbucks. It's not a chain. It's a franchise one, so they won't take the Starbucks card either.
There's plenty of food around, but you're paying a lot of money for it. So
I think we've had the benefit that I live quite close to the NEC, so I can live here and we can travel in each day. If we're doing the London events, I've got friends who live in London that we stay with. We just sort of couch surf basically. use your friends as much as you can, and then
Yeah.
say thank you and do their washing up. That's
You sort of talked a little bit about how you deal with. In fact, you didn't get a chance to get onto it. How do you deal with influencers when you get and again, I know people don't like that word, but how do you deal with YouTubers or kind of other people who when you do recognize them?
I'll let you say that one, Tom.
It's mostly treating them like you would anybody else.
Yeah.
Because they get a lot of people that when they do notice them, sort of hound them, like, I need your attention right now. I spent 2 hours talking to Ashens once. I know who he was, but I didn't make a whole thing of like, oh my god, you're Ashens.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of helped the conversation keep going, and learn quite a lot about him, actually. But yeah, I just realized they're people like everybody else. Don't put them on a pedestal, and as long as you're treating everybody with respect, it shouldn't matter too much. And if they have a good time with the game, that's great. Then it might lead to something. The bigger YouTubers and bigger Twitch streamers tend to ask for money to play games unless they like the game. So if you can make them want to play the game, that's better than saying, play my game. That's a bit too forward and on them.
It's always fascinating to see. Like, remember at One Insomnia, there was an 8-year-old which had a massive queue for signing things, and it's like, it's crazy. Like, it's the amount of people that get into it. Love it. But yeah, you see a lot of people around, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I've learned as well is that when you're demonstrating, all the things that you said, be as precise as you can as well. Like, I remember I was at UK Gaming Exhibition, which is the board games one, and I had to demo a game that I literally learned about 20 minutes before, because it was a board game, to Shut Up and Sit Down, who are the big board game guys. And that was a nightmare because they needed to go around as many. We were still in the press section. There's quite often an opening. There's an opening afternoon or day when the press come in and kind of walk around. So, and obviously I kind of knew who they were. But they needed to go around as many things as possible and have as many games shown to them as possible in as short a time as possible as well. And so that's something else that, again, if you're dealing with people during the kind of press sections, that's the thing. But yeah, I think also it's worth sort of saying, they're not blind as well. If you're treating other people badly in order to get to them, they'll notice that. And it doesn't reflect well. So yeah. Cool. I can't see any questions. Have you got any kind of closing advice or any sort of closing thoughts? And then I'll switch over to our next talk.
You got any?
Yeah, I think the thing, obviously, we kind of just left off at the end, like, just look after yourself, have fun at the events. Yes, you're there to showcase your game, but also look after yourself, make use of the early access getting into it. Walk around the hall, play anything that you need to before the crowd starts, and ultimately just network, make friends, and you'll get a lot out of these. And just be prepared to get ill, because convention flu, unfortunately, is a thing. So hand sanitizer is a must. And if you touch anything at an expo, before you make sure you wash your hands before you eat.
Which also includes when you touch door handles or go to the bathroom, all sorts of things. Con crud is also, if you're asthmatic, the halls are real dusty. One of the grimmest things I ever saw was in San Jose, massive exhibition hall, and it had not a super high ceiling, but the condensation formed clouds in the ceiling. And then, of course, when you think of where those clouds have come from, it was like, oh
yikes.
I need to shower.
I think it's the same at the LAN party at Insomnia.
Absolutely. Anything from you, Tom? If you got anything finally?
I think Davin's covered most of it. It's mostly don't put too much pressure on that event being like the thing that's going to make the success of your game. If you're exhibiting, it's like, go there, have fun. If you're having fun, the people that are around you are also going to have fun, and that's going to be a better result really for everybody. And then book a couple of days off afterwards. That picture of me down at the bottom in the purple shirt, that was 4 days of Insomnia, 2 days rest, and then 4 days of rest. That was me at the end of it.
Wear decent shoes as well. Wear a pair of trainers. Like, you're going to do a lot of standing up. All right. Oh, go on.
I was going to say it's like 26,000 steps on average we were walking a day or something like that.
On average of a 5-day convention, I walk 75 miles. And that's an average on doing conventions 3 or 4 times a year. So that's not a it is tough on your feet. So yeah. Okay, all right then, folks. Well, thank you so much. That was absolutely great, and I'm hoping some of you are also going to watch this back, because both our Twitch and our YouTube channels are being recorded, so they will exist in perpetuity. I will be back in about 5 minutes with the next speaker, who is Human Ismaili. But just a big thanks to both Davin and Tom for that. That was just really kind of compact. It was really useful. Like, again, I mean, I've been running conventions for years, and I picked up stuff from that I was like, ooh, yeah. That's the thing. So yeah, so thank you both very much, and I'll just be ending the broadcast in the next 30 seconds.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, I think you'll be automatically cut off when I press end broadcast. So are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you steady?
Ready.
Farewell.